For joining me for Full of Bull episode number 3. It's been a little bit since the first 2 episodes. I wanted to kind of change the format because I figured that I'm going to get more views later on when people go back and look at the videos once the blog goes live, hopefully in the next 30 days. So thank you, and here's some hopefully some great content. First tough love daily motivation that I wanted to cover is to trust your gut because it doesn't have an ulterior motive. Those are my words, but I think they're very true. I think that people don't appreciate their initial instincts and they don't trust themselves, and they ended up second guessing and end up with an outcome that is not what they wanted. Some of the biggest decisions in my life have been made on the cuff, on the fly. Boom, boom, boom. Just something happens. You have to trust your initial instinct, make a decision. Sometimes that decision is life-altering. Sometimes it's not. But if you don't trust yourself, then who can you trust, right? So it's important to make sure that you're listening to your gut because it's looking out for you. Try to make sure that things work out. So it seems to me that people take themselves too damn seriously. Whether it's be Instagram where people are trying to post the most perfect pictures or untag pictures on Facebook or on something else that they don't feel is their best picture. They can't joke with themselves. They can't laugh at themselves. And if you can't laugh at yourself, then what the hell are you doing? So the problem is I think that people take themselves too seriously. So one of the tough love daily motivations was to take your work, your family, and your happiness seriously, but not yourself. Those 3 things I think are extremely important. Take your work seriously. It's your livelihood. For most of us, it's a passion as well. Take your family seriously. If you're not taking your family seriously, then why do you have a family? And take your happiness seriously. Don't just slop through life willing to accept whatever the hell is in front of you. Do something about it. But don't take yourself seriously. If you can't laugh at yourself, if you can't handle a crappy picture online, then you need to work on getting over yourself. So I decided that rather than talking about events that have happened recently that have kind of affected me, I wanted to talk about some events that have happened in the past that only until recent times have I realized how impactful some of those things were on who I became and why I became who I am. And I think it's valuable for all of us to kind of look at our past and see what kind of shaped us. So when we're raising our kids, when we're interacting with other people, we can be conscious of that and how that interaction might affect things in the long run. So when I was in high school, I wrestled. I was wrestling against kids who had been wrestling for 3-4 years. So I spent the first 2.5 years getting my ass kicked. But I enjoyed it. It was something that was one of the first things I wasn't good at right away, but I had still stuck with. So this was back in the cell phone days. Yes, I'm that old, even though I might look older today without shaving. But it's really before cell phone days. So there was payphones. So my mom lived, well, my family, we lived a 6-minute drive away from our high school. So I know that because I just Google mapped it the other day. But it's a 27-minute walk. And if you've ever done Google Maps and their walking estimates, they're always low. So that 27 minutes was probably more like 30 minutes, 30 plus minutes. And then you add on top of that, after 3 hours of wrestling practice, I was pretty damn tired. So it's more like 35, 40-minute walk, just kind of dragging myself along. So the reason I tell you that is because I love my mom, and she's amazing, but her interaction in this manner kind of shaped a little bit of who I am. So after wrestling practice, school was done at like, 3 o'clock, 2:30. Practice started at 3:30, whatever it was, half an hour after school. It was usually a 3-hour practice, so we were done at like 6 or 6:30. Essentially within the same 15-minute time gap every night. So I asked my mom, hey mom, can you just come pick me up at 6:15 or 6:30, whatever that time was? And she was like, no, call me, I'll be there. And so every time that I didn't already plan on walking or I didn't have a ride before I was able to drive, I would have to pull out my quarter, pop in the payphone, and call her. She was usually cooking dinner or doing something around the house. And I would get, okay, yeah, I'll be right there. 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later, sometimes 30 minutes later, then she shows up. And so what I decided is, you know what, screw that. I'm going to stop calling. I'll just walk home. And then obviously as soon as I was old enough to drive, I just drove home. So that might seem like a small thing, but when I look back at now, that forced me to have independence, to not rely on my parents to do something for me. And it was something that I was choosing to do, and I chose to get my ass home at the end of the day. And on that rare occasion when she was nearby or she was truly right on her way, she'd come pick me up. But for the most part, I just worried about getting myself home. And that kind of makes me think now, because that level of independence I'm trying to instill in my son as well, to make sure that he's not always reliant on me, to know that I'm always there, but that sometimes you got to figure shit out on your own. And so I think that's important. I think that has kind of been a valuable tool for me in life, and just kind of figuring things out and being willing to take a risk, to take a gamble, so to say. But that was just a thought I wanted to share. I think a lot of times, the more I talk about it, the more I realize these impacts that these moments have had, and hopefully most of them are for the better. And when I look back and my son looks back, hopefully he has some of these moments that shaped him positively as well. All right, so that's it for episode number 3. Episode number 4 will be up much sooner than between the second and the third. So thank you for taking the time to check this out, and please check out the blog. It'll be up soon, and subscribe to my page. The other social media is growing, and I'll start working on YouTube shortly. Thank you very much.